This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. A Winnipeg veterinarian who has had 11 rulings against him is now facing another complaint with the regulatory body that governs vets. The I-Team's Caroline Bargout has the story.
Are you a good boy? Oh yeah. Who's there? Who's there?
It was a difficult summer for David Strickland and his now 7-month-old dog Chewbacca.
Come here.
In August, the Winnipeg man thought he had poisoned his puppy while spraying a wasp nest. The dog was throwing up, had diarrhea, and wouldn't eat. Strickland took him to Dr. Wrongful at the Animal Hospital of Manitoba in North Point Douglas. The vet told him the dog had parvovirus, an often deadly disease, and that treatment would cost $2,000 for 2 nights hospitalization and blood transfusions.
And I said to him, will the dog live after that? If I do that, will the dog live? He says, I can't say for sure, but it's better than not doing nothing. So then I said to him, well, I don't know if I can afford $2,000+ right at this moment. What about I didn't want to, but I said, what about putting them down?
Strickland was gutted about the idea of putting his dog down because he couldn't afford the vet bill. So he ended up going to another clinic for a second opinion. That vet told him Chewy had worms. The diagnosis and treatment cost $277. And within days, the dog was better.
I was furious. I could have put this dog down for nothing.
He's since filed a complaint with the Manitoba Veterinary Medical Association, or MVMA. According to the MVMA, that's the regulatory body that governs vets in this province. Dr. Zhang has had 11 complaints against him in his more than 25-year career. An inquiry panel said his disciplinary record shows a pattern of repetitive behavior, demonstrating the practice of substandard quality of veterinary medicine. Wendy Anderson says she knows that firsthand. She took her dog Jake to see Dr. Zhang 3 times for what she thought was ear mites and paid hundreds of dollars. That's a problem. Only to have the dog develop the same condition months later. She filed a complaint with the MVMA in 2018 and won. She doesn't understand how Dr. Zhang could have so many prior complaints against him and still be allowed to practice veterinary medicine.
I certainly don't want to take anyone's livelihood away, but I think everybody makes mistakes or misjudgments, which is acceptable, but this is excessive and not acceptable.
The MVMA written decision in her case says Dr. Zhang displays a lack of knowledge or skill or judgment in the practice of veterinary medicine.
We'll check the ears.
He was ordered to pay $50,000 in investigation and hearing costs, a $2,000 fine, and had to take continuing education courses. Dr. Zhang says he's been treated unfairly.
Good girl. I practice with my heart. I feel I'm very knowledgeable, experienced veterinarian, but we are in a lower economic zone, and some of the situations I couldn't believe that the people complain.
Dr. Zhang says he gives discounts to low-income clients who can't afford to pay their bills to try and help them out. He appealed the Anderson decision and lost. He hopes to take his case to the Supreme Court of Canada. We asked the MVMA what it would take for a vet to be suspended or lose their license. The regulatory body said it can't comment why one sanction would be chosen by the inquiry panel over another. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
If you have a tip for our I-Team, you can call our confidential tip line 204-788-3744 or send an email to iteam@cbc.ca. All 57 Manitoba MLAs are now sworn in. But as CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, some are not ready to move on from the election.
All 34 members of the NDP caucus officially became MLAs today. Some shook hands with Wabkinew, others hugged the party leader, and at least one, Fort Garry backbencher Mark Wasilyu, avoided pleasantries with the Premier altogether. All 22 members of the PC caucus also got sworn in, including opposition leader Heather Stephenson. Then it was on to the issues of the day, starting with the MPI strike that could end up in arbitration as soon as Friday. Wabkinew made no apologies for asking a new NDP-appointed board to negotiate a deal.
We're big believers in 60-day binding arbitration, but we inherited a situation where the clock was already around the 50-day mark. And so we're committed to, I guess, creating a bit of time here, because we believe that the best place for these situations to get resolved is at the bargaining table.
Canoe also addressed election promises to launch a pair of public inquiries, one into Manitoba's COVID response, another into construction and procurement scandals at City Hall. The Premier said he'd like both inquiries to start within a year.
The previous government always made excuses, and what we're saying is that we're going to cut through that. We're just going to give you, the people of Manitoba, an opportunity to hear some answers.
In the even shorter term, Canoe said the province will have something to say this year about funding for True North's proposed renovation of Portage Place, a project started under the PC government. Heather Stephenson, who will be interim PC leader for at least a year, didn't address reporters. Her close ally, Abi Khan, spoke in her place, but wouldn't touch the hottest topic for his party.
How interested are you in being party leader?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first I'm hearing of it from you. No, I'm joking. Hey, look, you can still make jokes in the media.
The NDP, however, isn't ready to joke around with the Tories. Wab Canoe says he's still upset with their negative election campaign.
My message to the PC party will be that they should explain why they campaigned on division and to account for the choices that they've made.
There's no word yet on when MLAs will return to the chamber. Those details should get sorted in the coming days. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
As the conflict between Israel and Hamas enters its third week, tensions are running high around the world, including right here in Winnipeg. This weekend, Winnipeg police had to step in between protesters when pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian groups got heated in front of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports.
Tempers boiled over as the pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli came face to face. This after a pro-Palestinian protester took an Israeli flag, threw it to the ground and stepped on it. Police intervened to calm the crowd and returned them to their respective sides of the road outside the Canadian Museum for Human Rights.
There's nothing wrong with dialogue.
Ram Aziz is the president of the Canadian Palestinian Association who organized the rally. He says the people are emotional right now.
Well, they're very upset. Things that are happening in Gaza, in Palestine, are very troubling. Families are being killed. There's a genocide. So people are emotional. People see the Israeli flag and they see bad things when they look at that flag. So people don't like it. So I can't blame them. At the same time, we really have to watch what we're doing.
Zeid says he's urging his community to stay peaceful.
We're also reaching out to our Winnipeg police to try to keep the other side away, to keep them away from these rallies, because they're coming just to try to entice us, to try to antagonize us, so that we react in a negative manner.
Ron East is the founder of the Israeli-Canadian Council who organized the pro-Israel rally. He says they're not looking to escalate violence. He says taking a flag is an act of anti-Semitism and it's unfortunate to witness such actions.
We live in a great country. Canada is a wonderful country. Democracy is what provides all of us the opportunity to go out there and demonstrate and have rallies and be out there for our causes. But there needs to be some level of respect and some level of decorum when you go out there in the rallies. Some of the chants that are being chanted are anti-Semitic.
East says he reached out to his Fort White MLA Obi Khan and requested a sit-down to resolve issues between the two groups.
We talked about having the idea of trying to bring the Palestinian community leadership and the Israeli Jewish leadership together around the table so we can come to some kind of an understanding about how both of our communities can continue to live and thrive in Winnipeg without either community having to feel fear of safety issues.
Khan says he hasn't had a formal request to moderate a conversation, but is willing to do it.
I know both parties very well, and seeing where we can go from there. I think everyone wants peace. Everyone wants to move forward together as a community here in Manitoba. We're all in this together.
Zeid says he's open to talking with anyone, including Khan and East. Both groups say rallies will continue here as long as the conflict continues. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A First Nations man who was sent to prison for murder in 1974, nearly 50 years ago, has been granted bail. His lawyers say he was wrongfully convicted. CBC's Brittany Greenslade has the latest.
3 months after Brian Anderson was found wrongfully convicted and acquitted of a 50-year-old murder, he was back in court as his cousin and co-accused Clarence Woodhouse attempts to also clear his name.
Well, I'm happy for him. It's finally happening.
Lawyers from Innocence Canada, who helped overturn Anderson's conviction, are now working to do the same for Woodhouse. Today, they stood outside the courthouse relieved that he'll be released from Stony Mountain and soon be home with his family.
He's now going to go and live with his 5 grandchildren and his son. His grandchildren range from the ages of 8 to 1. So he's going to have his work cut out for him.
Woodhouse and 3 others were convicted of killing a restaurant worker back in 1974. Anderson and another man, Alan Woodhouse, were exonerated in July. Prosecutors found there was a miscarriage of justice, and his lawyers say the case was entirely based on coerced confessions.
The confessions were all false. They were all assaulted by the police, the Winnipeg police. The police made up their statements.
Woodhouse's case is now being reviewed by the federal justice minister. But his lawyers say they have no doubt his conviction will be overturned.
And let's never forget the basis of this case started with the systemic racism that affected these men at all levels of the criminal justice system.
His sister Linda had a hard time holding back tears.
Very emotional and really happy. And when I was in there, I kept looking at him and he was smiling.
The Crown attorney who prosecuted the case is George Dangerfield, who now has the reputation for most wrongful convictions in Canada. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A judge has dismissed a $20 million lawsuit against the city of Winnipeg over industrial land in St. Boniface. Land developer Terracon sued the city in 2016. Terracon argued the city backed out of a joint venture agreement for a business park. The developer also argued the city abused confidential information from those talks to reach his own deal on the land. In a decision issued Friday, Justice Theodore Bach of the Court of King's Bench said the two sides never concluded a legally binding agreement. A farmer from southwest Manitoba wants to help others overcome the stigma of getting help for their mental health. It comes as a recent report finds economic challenges and climate change are taking a toll on producers. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
As this fall's harvest approached, Donna Odell went for mental health counseling. The Verdon area farmer says a combination of factors on and off the farm were causing her anxiety.
And I haven't really gone through that before, but I had a lot of things all come together in the 1 week, and I didn't know how I was surviving the week.
She's also lived with depression, and Odell says reaching out for help makes a difference.
It has helped. Yes, it's helped a lot.
A Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives report says across Canada, farmers are experiencing declining mental health. The report's author, York University health policy researcher Zsofia Mendley-Zambo says at the heart of the farmer mental health crisis is pervasive economic uncertainty and precarity.
And this precarity is driven by growing corporate concentration in the food sector, consolidation, and financialization of farmland, as well as climate change.
But she says many are still not seeking help because of stigma. The report makes 6 recommendations, including implementing policies that enhance economic stability for farmers and farm workers, and expanding mental health care for farmers. That's something Jerry Friesen is passionate about because of his own personal experience with depression and anxiety when he used to farm.
I mean, currently we have climate events. We have excessive moisture, we have drought. In the poultry industry, they've been dealing with avian influenza.
He's now the CAO of the Manitoba Farmer Wellness Program. It started in March 2022 and offers 6 free counseling sessions annually to farmers and their families. Appointments can be done by phone, video, or in person.
Yeah, the uptake has been good. So I say it's been good, which is good, but it also indicates that there's a problem with stress and mental health issues in the farming community.
The program has 4 counselors in southern Manitoba. They're based in Strathclair, Brandon, Steinbach, and Winkler, and they all have a background in agriculture, so they understand the challenges farmers face. Odell serves as a board member for the program and says that's important because farmers face unique challenges. She shared her story with other producers to help them overcome the stigma.
You know, when we have our conversations with people, it is interesting how much they do open up. So I think it's just really a matter of talking.
She says once people start talking, they feel more comfortable seeking help for mental health. Josh Krebs, CBC News, Verdun.
The city of Winnipeg may pay more than $100,000 to property owners when it changes the name of Grandin Street. A report says that's how much it'll cost to compensate expenses related to that name change. Most of the money would go to the Kinsman Club of Winnipeg to pay for changing card and envelope stock at its head office on Grandin Street. Bishop Justin Vital Grandin was an advocate for the creation of Canada's residential school system. That's why City Council voted to change the name to Tapwaywen Way. The new name is expected to take effect by summer next year. Workers at Superstores in Manitoba have approved a new labor deal with their employer. About 3,500 members of the United Food and Commercial Workers Local 832, work at 11 superstores in this province. The union says the 5-year deal includes an immediate 5.6% wage hike, followed by another 3.3% at the end of March. Wage hikes of an additional 7% will be spread over the last 3 years of the deal. The Jets' head coach is taking a leave of absence. Rick Bonus's wife suffered a seizure last evening. The Jets say she's now in the hospital getting further tests. Associate coach Scott Arnell will step in as interim head coach. The Jets next play the St. Louis Blues tomorrow. And a Winnipegger has won a gold medal for Canada at the Pan Am Games. Skylar Park competed in Taekwondo in Santiago, Chile over the weekend. She also recently won a Grand Prix event in China. Park says it took a lot for her body to recover from that competition to compete at the Pan Am Games. But she says it meant a whole lot for her to win gold where she did.
These Pan Am Games were extra special being in Chile. It's where my mom's from. And so to have family in the crowd, Chilean family in the crowd, to have my grandparents come from Winnipeg, my aunt come from Winnipeg, and just have so many supporters in the stands here at this event made it that much more special.
Park's brother, Tai Wu, also won bronze in Taekwondo at the Pan Am Games over the weekend. She says now she's setting her sights on the 2024 Paris Olympics. Meteorologist John Sauter joins us now with more on that change on the way that he's been following for us for the last week or so.
Yeah, kind of last call at the warm weather party that we've been all attending lately.
Yes.
Yeah, there is a change on the way. Talked about this last week on Thursday as we looked at mid this week, and the timing is pretty much bang on. And I'll go through the details here, and you'll see it's not just about snow, it's about temperature as well. So currently, well, we did get to 9 today, 7 right now, so temperature has already started to fall off. But so is the wind, and that's good because earlier it was gusting to 50 kilometers per hour. North at 30 right now, relative humidity at 87%. And we're looking at, temperatures continuing to fall off tonight. Right now, actually, you just saw the live update hit at 6 degrees, dew point at 4. So that's why the relative humidity is so high. So 6 degrees right now, but we're kind of lucky. Look at the afternoon temperatures. This is Monday at 3 o'clock. So this afternoon at 3 o'clock, and you can see there's a very definite line here between the 7s, 8s, 9s, even an 11 earlier in Kenora, but at 3 o'clock at 10 degrees, and you look north and west of that line, and it is absolutely, well, more like winter, actually, -1 even in Regina. And you look at the upper level atmosphere by Wednesday at 3 o'clock, this upper level trough really brings the cold air farther south, and then by the weekend it just digs farther and farther to the south. So we do have some colder weather certainly on the way. This morning's rain is now well off to the east, gave us about 3 to 5 millimeters here in the Winnipeg area, but the next system is the one that we're talking about, and it is already bringing snow off the mountains and into Calgary and Edmonton. We're talking 10 plus centimeters here. That's all going to move across Saskatchewan tomorrow as this low develops and spreads another 10 to maybe 15 centimeters in southern Saskatchewan. So overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, there'll be some accumulating snow in areas like Saskatoon and down into Regina. And then into the morning and certainly on into the afternoon, we'll see some flurries tomorrow. Swan River, Dauphin, even down through Brandon and Verdun and along the number 1 highway. So that's Tuesday at 5 o'clock, and then the thing really starts to get organized, and you can see it moving into the province by early on Wednesday morning. So that's 4:30. By the time we get into midday and the rest of the afternoon, this is probably about 5 to 10 centimeters potential. But some of this is going to melt on contact. So snowfall amounts for southern Manitoba, really a tough call. Now, you look at the graph model, and over the next 48 hours, so this takes us right out to 6 p.m. on Wednesday. It only has a couple of centimeters here in the Red River Valley and southeast, but higher amounts to the west. So we'll look at this again tomorrow, and we'll see what the model is resolving as far as that snowfall heading through the day on Wednesday. These clouds that are over us right now should break up a little bit overnight, and tomorrow is kind of the last call that I was joking about with Janet, but -1 in the morning and a very seasonal 7 degrees in the afternoon, and light winds and a few little blue patches around too. So a sun cloud mix, and then it hits wet snow, an afternoon temperature of 3 on Thursday, and then we just gradually cool off with more flurries on the way Thursday and Friday. And by the time we get into the weekend, Janet, it is looking much, much colder than even these numbers. So I'll have that a little later for you.
Eek. Thanks very much, Sean. Nice warm cup of tea. Who do you know who puts on the kettle and serves tea whenever someone visits? Could be your grandparents, your auntie, maybe it's you. Serving up a nice cup of tea is a form of hospitality that crosses generations and cultures. The Islamic Social Services Association hosted its 8th annual Multicultural Tea Fest yesterday at Assiniboia Downs. Guests had the chance to sample teas from more than a dozen countries, as well as pastries. Shahina Siddiqui, the founder and executive director of Islamic Social Services Association, joins us now. Shahina, thank you for being with us.
You're welcome.
What's the goal of the multicultural teas the association hosts each year?
First, it's of course marking the Islamic History Month Canada. With this activity, we bring many cultures together. And it's family friendly. You get to sit and know each other, talk to each other, learn about different cultures in a very friendly environment, I should say. And also, you know, tea is one thing that brings people and families together. And so we thought, you know, we have so many cultures who are known for their tea. I mean, we do have some coffee kiosks too. But that whole idea of coming together, you know, relax, sipping a cup of tea, having some hors d'oeuvres, it's just a very different environment than any other gathering.
It looks like a lovely way to make friends.
Exactly. And I have heard from people over 8 years that we've been doing this, that they have made friends through this and learned so much. Because each kiosk also has an ambassador who talks to them about and write outs about the country of origin or their parents. Many of them are second or third generation, but they still feel the pride to bring that to everyone.
And such a big turnout, it's grown as an event that you needed a larger venue this year.
I know, and we're glad that we got it because last year it was so tight for people to move. So I thought, okay, let's try this, and we will look again next year, learn from what we could have done better this year. But everybody loved it, you know. It's always the organizers who think, okay, this could have been better or that, but the impression everybody got was that it was great.
You know, you've worked so hard for so many years to build cross-cultural understanding and friendships across faiths. With so many people upset right now about what's happening in the news, how can we stay united as Manitobans?
Yeah, and you know, this was my call out to people because many were saying, you know, we are all feeling so heavy and our hearts are so heavy. Should we do it? And I said, that's the more reason to do it. Because all the children are seeing, or we are glued to social media or TV and just seeing those horrific scenes, right? No matter where you're from. And I said, no, we need to also have a venue where we can heal, when we can show our children that this is not the end of the world, that they can reach out to each other, empower each other, you know, hold each other's hands and feel that they're not alone in their grief or their trauma. because there are so many newcomers also who are also already coming with trauma of war, and then to be exposed to that here has been very, very difficult. So I think it gave us a few hours of just being able to breathe, find friendship and allies who mutually understand what it is like.
Shahina Siddiqui, thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jen.
2 more Israeli hostages have been released from captivity in Gaza, and Israel's increasing the number of airstrikes. We'll bring you the latest from the region after the break. The International Committee of the Red Cross says 2 more Israeli hostages have been released from captivity in Gaza. It says the 2 women are elderly and come from a kibbutz in southern Israel, one that was attacked by Hamas earlier this month. The CBC's Susan Ormiston has more on the day's developments in the region.
Families flee in Gaza City after a bombardment demolishes a neighbor's house, they say, as the Israeli military intensify their airstrikes. some of the most severe of this war. More than 300 strikes in 24 hours. Hamas-controlled health authorities say casualties are rapidly rising, over 5,000 killed in the war, including thousands of children. But the exact number is hard to verify. The last 24 hours was particularly deadly, it says, and pressure is growing internationally for a pause in this war.
It's very dire, and the only thing that we can do is to ask for a humanitarian pause and to increase the access of the humanitarian support.
But so far, no ceasefire. The Israeli military is zeroing in on Hamas operations, pounding targets to neuter threats, it says, before troops advance on the ground into Gaza. We spoke to Bilal Jad Allah in Gaza City.
Do you believe that there will be an Israeli ground incursion very soon?
For us here, or for Gaza people here, it's now safe. Because what he's doing from the sky is too much. He destroyed everything. So what is the need for the ground in Gaza? He destroyed everything in Gaza.
A third convoy of trucks carrying supplies got through to Gaza via the Rafah crossing in Egypt. Critical supplies of food and medicine, but no fuel needed to distribute those supplies, to desalinate the water, and critically to run hospital generators.
Without fuel, we are going to sadly be forced to stop our humanitarian operation in a couple of days on Wednesday night. So we really urge those who can help us to facilitate the delivery, an urgent delivery of fuel into the Gaza Strip.
Gaza is bracing for another deadly night, but tonight, 2 more hostages, both Israeli women, were freed by the militant group Hamas, it says for humanitarian reasons and because of poor health. But that leaves 220 other hostages still captive inside Gaza and will only ratchet up the pressure on Israeli and other governments to get them all out before an expected ground offensive. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Canada's wrapped up its military flights leaving Israel, carrying Canadians who want to get out of the region. The Minister of Foreign Affairs is still overseas, working to help Canadians who are in the conflict zones. Meantime, here at home, the Liberal government's under pressure to call for a ceasefire. Kate McKenna has the latest.
With these trucks carrying aid into Gaza, Ottawa is still looking to get about 450 people out and to Canada. The Foreign Affairs Minister says there's still no firm commitment.
Evacuation of foreign nationals have not happened yet. And so we're in contact with many countries, including, of course, Israel, but also the US, Qatar, as negotiations are still happening.
Melanie Joly is in the Middle East, talking to regional allies trying to stop conflict from spilling into the rest of the region.
I think it is important that together we work on a political dialogue to make sure that there is a horizon for peace and stability in the mid and longer term.
But she warns there is concern, especially on Israel's northern border.
For Canadians that are in Lebanon, it is time now to come home.
We are working in preparation and planning for what may be required of us.
The defense minister says the military is ready to help bring home Canadians from Lebanon if things get worse.
We're looking at every eventuality.
The situation in Gaza has grown dire.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh asked for an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister, calling for an end to armed conflict.
Will the Prime Minister join the NDP's call for a ceasefire now?
We are doing everything that we can to support Canadians on the ground.
Canada's official position is that Israel has the right to defend itself in accordance with international law. The Foreign Affairs Minister was asked repeatedly about calls for a ceasefire, including some from her fellow Liberals. She showed no signs of Canada changing its position. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Municipalities across Canada are under pressure to change bylaws and allow for more housing to be built. $4 billion is up for grabs through Canada's Housing Accelerator Fund. But as CBC's Marina von Stackelberg reports, some cities are concerned with the demands Ottawa's putting on them.
Canada's Housing Minister Sean Fraser with a message for municipalities. If you want federal money to help you build more homes, get ambitious or get left behind.
We are looking for the best of the best. We are looking for the most ambitious applications.
Ottawa has received some 540 applications, but Fraser is suggesting cities alter their proposals to increase their chances of scoring the funds. He says municipalities should offer up their own land for development, speed up building permits, and loosen restrictions on the parking and land they require for housing.
If there's a message for communities that are partway through the process today, if you see your neighbor stepping up their ambition and getting a successful agreement with the federal government, know that that's who you're competing against.
Ottawa also wants cities to change zoning bylaws, so land designated for a single house can be used for multiple units. That's something Mississauga, Ontario recently voted to do.
I have no direction from my residents as to whether or not I should be voting in favor of fourplexes as of right.
But some councillors who voted against that worry in the rush to rezone and access the money, they haven't studied the impact on public services.
For the federal government to impose its housing standards on municipalities across this country and then just dangle a little bit of funding in front of us to get us to significantly overhaul our zoning bylaws in our cities, I think is very disingenuous by the federal government.
Other cities have a plan, but think Ottawa needs to be more flexible with its demands.
When the minister asked for 4 units per property, we just don't see that fits for Charlottetown because one method or one idea is not applicable to all. So as an historic city, we have to keep that historic look.
I don't want to see the historic buildings in Charlottetown knocked over for small apartments, of course.
The federal government has reached funding deals with Halifax and several Ontario cities, including Hamilton, London, Vaughan, and Brampton. And in the coming few weeks, Ottawa plans to look at the applications from smaller municipalities and rural communities. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
If you've ever been tempted by a sign like this or by flyers you get from companies offering to buy your home for cash, stay tuned. After the break, we'll hear from an Ontario woman who says signing up for this was a costly mistake for her. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Welcome back. An Ontario woman says it was a costly mistake to use a company offering quick cash for her home. The former homeowner had made the desperate decision while facing foreclosure. But she says the deal was not as quick as promised and cut her out of thousands of dollars in profit. Erica Johnson with the CBC's Go Public team has her story.
Lori Thompson pores over a contract with her mother, one she regrets signing, a contract to sell her townhouse. She couldn't make the mortgage payments anymore, faced foreclosure.
I was just going to try to get the best at that time, that day, because I was under pressure.
She went online and found honest home buyers, promising a quick sale, fast cash, and no dealing with MLS.
I want to thank you so much for visiting our website today.
Mike Chow walked through Thompson's home, produced a contract, and offered $575,000.
Because I thought I was going to get the money in 3 days, I accepted it that night.
But things quickly took a turn. The next day, Chow lowered his offer by $25,000, and Thompson learned that contract didn't mean Chow bought her house at all. He secured the right to assign it to someone else at a potentially higher price and keep that extra money for himself.
The frustrating part is that this can be done in plain daylight and not run afoul of any regulation or any laws.
The buyers Chow secured paid $610,000 10 weeks later, meaning after Thompson was finally paid, honest home buyers walked away with about $60,000. Money Thompson says would mostly have been hers if she'd used a licensed realtor. Go Public found house buying companies that make cash offers in all provinces and territories.
These companies are thriving now because Canadians need cash now more than ever.
Mike Chow said he didn't understand why his client was so upset.
It's not like we made her an offer and we didn't close.
Why do you think she's so unhappy?
Honestly, that's not my responsibility, and I'm not her therapist or her mother, okay? I bought the home for 550, which is what I said I would do.
Chow said he fully explained everything to Lori Thompson, that most of his clients are satisfied, but said there's room for improvement. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Meteorologist John Sauter joins us now. Okay, so Tuesday night for some of the province, they'll be getting snow like by this time tomorrow.
Yeah.
Western Manitoba.
Some flurries for sure.
The first drive of the winter.
Yeah.
We always see people who, it seems to take you by surprise that you can't stop as quickly as you can when the pavement's dry.
Yeah, and when the temperatures, like we'll see on Wednesday, are just above zero, we get fooled because sometimes a lot of this is going to melt on contact, but bridges don't have the benefit of the heating of the ground. Have a look at this, and it sort of explains what's going on. If you've got a road temperature at +1 and an air temperature at -2, and that air is just flowing over top and underneath the bridge deck temperature can be -3. So you're driving from wet roads, you get on the bridges, and you start to slide around. Just putting that thought in the back of your mind because we might be into that kind of weather as we head into Tuesday night and through the day on Wednesday. So, yeah, snow brushes. After that, heavier coats, as you'll see in the 7-day forecast. Right now, we've got single-digit temperatures that are right around seasonal for this time of year and this time of day, really 6 and 7 here in the Winnipeg area. We've got 5s and 4s out toward Brandon and Melita, but much cooler. Barons River, Dauphin, Swan River, and farther north, temperatures really cool off. It's just an example of what is headed this way. So these are the current 6 o'clock temperatures taken just about 35 to 40 minutes ago in those northern regions, where there is a lot more sunshine today than here across southern Manitoba. Pretty cloudy here. Tonight in through northwestern Ontario, still a chance of some evening showers around Kenora and Red Lake, but periods of rain for Fort Frances and Dryden, and temperatures mostly staying above zero. -2 though in Red Lake. We've got -2 lows here across Steinbach and Sprague region. This shouldn't say 7, it should say -2 for tonight. 7 is is not quite. That's tomorrow's high. -3s, though, for Brandon, Dauphin, -4 in Swan River tonight. As we head to the north, temperatures a little bit cooler than that yet, and a chance of flurries around Lynn Lake. Winds in Churchill tonight are out of the west and gusting to 60. Tomorrow they stay fairly strong, and temperatures here will be more like what we are going to see on the weekend. We might even see temperatures in the south a little bit cooler than this by the weekend. But a nice sunny day in Thompson tomorrow at +1 as well for Churchill. Across the south, we're looking at a chance of showers or flurries around Brandon and a chance of flurries in Dauphin and Swan River. Farther east, more of a sun-cloud mix, and it will be warmer. 6s and 7s for Winnipeg and out into Portage, Carman. 8s for Emerson and Steinbach tomorrow. Same with Sprague, and a chance of showers mixed with flurries in and around Barons River. We could see some morning showers in Fort Frances, followed by just cloudy skies and temperatures around 8 degrees. All right, 7-day forecast on the way, Janet, and I'll have that for you in a few minutes.
Thanks very much, John.
You bet.
Coming up, dealing with homelessness in Winnipeg, working with a new provincial government. We'll find out what's on the mind of Winnipeg's mayor next. From homelessness to addictions, there are many tough challenges facing Winnipeg. CBC Radio's Faith Fundal sat down with Mayor Scott Gillingham to talk about these issues and catch up on other matters at City Hall.
You posted on social media last week about Wab Kinew and his cabinet being sworn in. You said you were looking forward to working with all the new ministers, especially Ian Boushie in municipal relations and Bernadette Smith in housing, addictions, homelessness, mental health on shared priorities. When do you expect to officially meet?
Well, the Premier and I had an initial meeting just before he was sworn in. And in that meeting, we really identified some shared priorities. And homelessness and tackling homelessness is right at the top of the list for both the Premier and myself. And that to me is a good sign because I think we have a strong partner in Premier Kinew. And I was really pleased to see that he named Minister Bernadette Smith to be the Minister for Homelessness, Addiction, Housing, and Mental Health. And I think bringing all of those aspects under one portfolio, though it'll be very large, is really important because all of those really touch the homelessness file.
Did you have a conversation with him about safe injection sites, for example? It's something that's been in the news, has come up on and off over the last number of years.
Yeah, that was not raised with me, in our conversation, but just, the need to adopt one coordinated approach. We both share that idea. We've talked about, both he and I, the Premier and I have talked about a model that Houston uses. Now, I want to reiterate what I've said before, Faith, that there are so many organizations within the City of Winnipeg. They're doing great work and they are coordinating, but making sure that all partners, including governments, are on the same page with one coordinated plan. We really need that kind of focus and coordination if we're going to make a difference in the lives of people who are struggling on our streets right now.
And Houston has the principles of a housing first approach. How might something like that look like here? What would have to come together for that single approach to be successful, do you think?
Well, there really is a housing first approach here as well. It's but by many partners. It's a matter of coordinating. First of all, there needs to be one coordinated plan. Everybody needs to share the data. It does need to be a housing first approach so that we can get people off the streets into housing, but they need wraparound supports. And that's where the work of Minister Smith is going to be so critical to make sure that we are all working together and that, she can help to identify those locations where people can be taken from the street, put into housing, and make sure everybody has the supports they need to be successful.
We got to talk about what some people were upset about recently. A decision by the Winnipeg Police Service to pull officers from community districts and reassign them to beef up patrols downtown. What is your take on that move? Where do you stand on all of this?
Well, I support the chief in that move at this time. Unfortunately, Faith, right now across Winnipeg, the crime rate is too high, and there has been an increase in criminal activity in the downtown. Thankfully, that is being addressed. It's being addressed by several different means. The chief has pulled officers from other areas to walk the beat in the downtown, so we have more foot patrol in the downtown right now, which is good. That gives us time to bring the 24 new officers on board. The previous provincial government announced funding for 24 more police officers for foot patrol in the downtown. So in the meantime, the chief has allocated some resources on a temporary measure to fill that void. But we also have the Downtown Community Safety Partnership. Community safety is not all about officers and badges and guns. They can't do it all. And so there's also a coordination with the Downtown Community Safety Partnership. And that group is so important because they can make sure that where there's not criminal activity, they can make sure that when they're talking to people or engaging with people who are struggling, they can get the right resources. Sometimes it's a social services agency that someone needs for the right resource. But making sure that our community is safer is a priority of mine, and I know it's a priority of the new Premier as well.
Mayor of Winnipeg speaking with Faith Fundal. Hey, Geese, what are you doing still here? These guys might want to start heading south once they see John's forecast. He'll be back with his 7-day after the break.
comes to your news, you want up-to-the-minute access. Anytime, anywhere. Get the facts straight from the source. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca for news you can trust.
So the city is still collecting yard waste for the next couple of weeks, and it always amazes me how quickly we go from raking leaves to shoveling snow, potentially anyway. This is a potential snowfall amount. Some of that is going to melt on contact, and you see the afternoon temperature at 3 degrees, but it certainly cools off. You know, we get flurries Thursday and Friday, not even wet flurries on Friday, just flurries. And then look at the daytime highs, -2 Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and you know, those morning temperatures would be -7 to -9. It's really going to feel like a big change. We have seen some pretty creative designs in cornfields to create mazes.
That's right. We'll be going from corn mazes to snow mazes, won't we? Well, there's a farmer in France who used his cornfield to grow a little romance. Oh. Here's your Daily Lift. You are looking at a surprise proposal carved out in massive letters that stretch about 180 meters. It's "Will you marry me?" in French, of course, an idea that was a year in the planning. The farmer used a tractor and GPS to carve out the question, let the corn grow, brought out his partner of 8 years to take a look at the field as a drone flew overhead, revealing the message. Of course, the farmer didn't stop there. Had to drop to one knee for the proposal.
Oh, man.
For the record, his partner said, oui.
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 Very
Yes.
creative, isn't it?
Yes, I will marry you. Yeah, that is creative.
Very
That's
original.
excellent. Good.
Better than on the big screen at the hockey game.
Right?
Yeah.
See? But, you know, that works too. Whatever works. Have a great evening.
Good night.